The meeting room on Galactic Station Prime buzzed with voices from dozens of different species. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat quietly at the human delegation table, her hands folded as she listened to yet another complaint about human colonies. "The humans refuse to fight back," growled Ambassador Crix, his reptilian features twisted in disgust. "My people attacked 3 of their mining stations last month. Do you know what they did? They sent us medical supplies and asked if we needed food." Several other ambassadors nodded in agreement. Elena had heard this conversation many times before. The galaxy saw humanity as weak, and she couldn't blame them for thinking that way. "It's not natural," added the crystalline representative from the Shard Collective. "Every species fights when attacked, every species protects what's theirs, but humans, they just forgive." Elena remembered the mining station attacks Crix mentioned. 17 humans had died in those raids. The families back on Earth had mourned their loss, but the government response was exactly what Crix described: medical aid, food supplies, and an offer to discuss what the Crix people needed. The truth was more complicated than the other species understood. Humanity had learned hard lessons during their early expansion into space. Wars were expensive, destructive, and usually solved nothing. The human government had decided long ago that patience and kindness worked better than weapons. Ambassador Vasquez called out the session leader, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. "What does humanity have to say about these concerns?" Elena stood up slowly. Around the room she could see the expressions of various alien species. Some looked bored, others annoyed. A few seemed genuinely curious about what she would say. "Honored representatives," she began, "humanity believes that most conflicts can be solved through talking and understanding. We've found that helping our neighbors creates better relationships than fighting them." "But what about your dignity?" asked Ambassador Crix. "What about respect? How can you let others walk over you like this?" Elena smiled softly. "We believe that true strength comes from choosing peace when you could choose war. Our people are happy, our colonies are growing, and we have friends throughout the galaxy. This seems like success to us." The room erupted in various sounds of disagreement. Some species clicked, others hissed, and a few made grinding noises that Elena had learned meant frustration. "Friends?" laughed Ambassador Crix. "You have servants, not friends. People who take advantage of your weakness." In the back of the room, a new voice spoke up. Elena turned to see the Zephyrian delegation. They rarely spoke during these meetings, considering themselves above the petty concerns of younger species. "The reptile speaks truth," said Ambassador Thane, the Zephyrian representative. His species looked almost human but taller and thinner, with pale skin and completely black eyes. "Humanity's behavior is amusing, like watching children play at being adults." Elena felt something cold in her stomach, but she kept her expression calm. The Zephyrians were ancient and powerful. They had been traveling between stars when most other species were still discovering fire. "Your opinion is noted, Ambassador Thane," Elena replied politely. Thane smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. "We have been watching humanity for some time now. Your expansion, your colonies, your interesting approach to conflict resolution. My people find it quite entertaining." The word entertaining hung in the air like a threat. Elena had heard rumors about Zephyrian activities near human space, ships that disappeared, colonies that reported strange illnesses, research stations that went silent. Nothing could be proven, but the pattern was concerning. "The Zephyrians have been very active near our borders lately," Elena said carefully. "Perhaps we could discuss ways to improve cooperation between our peoples." Thane's smile grew wider. "Oh, but we are cooperating, Ambassador. We're conducting valuable research on human behavior. Your people's responses to various stimuli have been most educational." The room had gone quiet. Even the other alien species seemed uncomfortable with Thane's tone. Elena felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her voice steady. "What kind of research?" she asked. "The kind that helps us understand how much pressure a species can take before it breaks," Thane replied. "So far, humans have proven remarkably flexible. We're curious to see if there's actually a limit. Elena looked around the room. The other ambassadors were watching this exchange with interest, but none seemed willing to intervene. This was exactly the kind of situation that made her job so difficult. Everyone expected humanity to just absorb whatever was thrown at them. "Ambassador Thane," she said, "I hope your research follows proper galactic law and respects the rights of all sentient beings." Thane laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Laws are made by the strong to control the weak, Ambassador. Your people seem to have forgotten this basic truth." "We prefer to think that laws exist to protect everyone equally," Elena replied. "How wonderfully naive," Thane said. "Tell me, what would it take to make humanity truly angry? We've tried so many things, but you always respond with more kindness, more forgiveness. It's almost like you're not a real species at all." The insult hit the room like a physical blow. Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even by galactic standards, questioning another species' right to exist was going too far. Elena felt her hands clench into fists, but she forced them to relax. This was exactly what Thane wanted, to provoke a reaction that would prove his point about human weakness. "Humanity has no interest in being angry," she said quietly. "We've found better ways to solve problems." "Have you really?" Thane asked, standing up from his seat. "Or have you simply forgotten how? Perhaps your species needs a stronger reminder of what real consequences look like." The session leader tried to regain control of the meeting. "Ambassador Thane, please return to your seat. These threats are not appropriate for this forum." Thane ignored the request, his black eyes fixed on Elena. "Not threats, honored leader. Promises. The Zephyrian Empire has been patient with humanity's expansion into space we consider ours. But patience has limits." Elena stood as well, meeting Thane's gaze directly. "And what exactly are you suggesting, Ambassador?" "I'm suggesting that humanity needs to learn its place in the galactic order," Thane replied. "There are consequences for species that refuse to follow the natural laws of strength and submission. Perhaps it's time for a more direct lesson." The room was completely silent now. Elena could hear her own heartbeat in the quiet. Around the table, alien faces watched the confrontation with mixed expressions of fear and fascination. "Humanity has always been willing to learn," Elena said finally. "But we choose our own teachers." Thane's smile disappeared. For a moment his polite mask slipped, and Elena saw something cold and predatory underneath. "We shall see," he said softly. "We shall see if your precious peace survives what's coming." With that, Thane and the other Zephyrian delegates left the room. The silence continued for several long seconds after they were gone. Elena sat back down, her mind racing. She had dealt with threats before, but something about Thane's tone suggested this was different. More serious, more dangerous. The session leader called for a recess, and the other ambassadors began filing out of the room. As Elena gathered her papers, Ambassador Crix approached her table. "Human," he said quietly, "I may not understand your people's ways, but what just happened? That wasn't normal diplomatic posturing." Elena looked up at the reptilian ambassador. "What do you mean?" "The Zephyrians don't make empty threats," Crix replied. "When they promise consequences, they deliver them. Your people should be careful." Elena nodded slowly. "Thank you for the warning." As Crix left, Elena remained alone in the empty meeting room. Outside the large windows, ships from dozens of worlds moved through space, going about their peaceful business. The sight usually comforted her, but today it felt fragile. She activated her communication device and sent a priority message to Earth. "Recommend increased security protocols for all frontier colonies. Situation with Zephyrian Empire escalating. Will report full details in next scheduled briefing." Elena didn't know it yet, but that message would be the last routine diplomatic communication between humanity and the rest of the galaxy for a very long time. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped off the transport ship onto the landing platform of New Geneva's main spaceport. The colony world spread out before her like a beautiful painting. Rolling green hills dotted with cities that seemed to grow naturally from the landscape. Clean rivers wound between settlements, and the air smelled of flowers and fresh rain. New Geneva was humanity's crown jewel, a world dedicated to healing and learning. The planet hosted the largest medical research complex in known space, including the famous Children's Medical Center, where doctors from dozens of species came to learn about treating young patients. Sarah was here for a special ceremony. After 5 years of negotiations, the Zephyrian Empire had agreed to a formal cultural exchange program. Today, Ambassador Thane himself would visit the Children's Medical Center to sign the agreement and tour the facilities. Dr. Chen called a voice behind her. She turned to see Director Martinez approaching with a small group of officials. "Welcome to New Geneva. I hope your flight from Earth was comfortable." "Very comfortable, thank you," Sarah replied, shaking the director's hand. "I'm excited to see what you've built here." "The reports don't do it justice," Director Martinez smiled proudly. "Wait until you see the Children's Center. We have kids from 15 different species getting treatment here. It's like a little piece of galactic harmony." As they walked through the spaceport, Sarah noticed families everywhere. Human children played with young aliens, their laughter mixing with the various sounds of different species. Parents sat together on benches, sharing stories and comparing notes about their children's treatments. "How many children are currently in the center?" Sarah asked. "About 8,000 patients," Director Martinez replied, "plus their families, staff, and visitors. New Geneva is home to almost 12 million children under the age of 12. It's why we call it the Garden of Tomorrow." They boarded a transport that glided silently through the city. Sarah watched schools and playgrounds pass by outside the windows. Every building seemed designed with children in mind: bright colors, safe spaces, and gardens full of flowers. "The Zephyrians specifically requested to visit here," Director Martinez continued. "Ambassador Thane said his people were interested in human approaches to medical care for young beings." Sarah felt a slight chill at the mention of Thane's name. She had been at the Galactic Council meeting where he had made those threats against humanity, but the diplomatic corps had assured everyone that this cultural exchange was a sign that tensions were improving. The Children's Medical Center was even more impressive than Sarah had imagined. The main building rose like a crystal flower from carefully tended gardens. Smaller structures surrounded it, connected by covered walkways decorated with artwork created by young patients. Inside, the atmosphere was busy but calm. Medical staff moved efficiently between rooms while children played in common areas. Sarah saw human doctors working alongside Rigelian healers, Centauri energy shapers, and even a few crystalline growth specialists. "Dr. Chen, Dr. Chen," a small voice called out. Sarah looked down to see a human girl, maybe 7 years old, running toward her. The girl's head was covered with a colorful scarf, and she carried a stuffed animal that looked like a friendly alien. "Hello there," Sarah said, kneeling down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "I'm Emma," the girl said with a big smile. "Are you here to see our center?" "It's the best place in the whole galaxy." "I think you might be right," Sarah replied. "What's that you're carrying?" Emma held up her stuffed animal. "This is Zuzu. My friend Keth gave him to me. Keth is from Rigel, and he's getting his breathing fixed, just like I'm getting my blood fixed." Before Sarah could respond, a young Rigelian child approached, moving slowly, but with a happy expression. "Emma, you're supposed to be resting," he said in accented but clear English. "Keth, come meet Dr. Chen, she's from Earth." Sarah spent several minutes talking with the children, learning about their treatments and their friendship. It was exactly the kind of scene that made New Geneva special. Different species coming together, especially the young ones who hadn't learned to see each other as strangers. "Dr. Chen," Director Martinez called softly, "the Zephyrian delegation has arrived." Sarah said goodbye to Emma and Keth, promising to visit them again before she left. As she walked toward the main reception area, she noticed increased security. Human guards stood at key positions trying to look casual but clearly alert. Ambassador Thane waited in the center's main lobby with 3 other Zephyrians. He looked exactly as Sarah remembered, tall, pale, with those unsettling black eyes. But his expression seemed different somehow, less coldly polite and more focused. "Ambassador Thane," Director Martinez said, stepping forward with his hand extended. "Welcome to New Geneva. We're honored by your visit." Thane shook the director's hand briefly. "The honor is ours. My people are very interested in seeing how humans care for their young. Dr. Chen here is one of our leading experts in pediatric medicine," Director Martinez said. gesturing toward Sarah. She'll be joining us for the tour. Thane's black eyes fixed on Sarah. Dr. Chen, I remember you from the council station. How fascinating that you're here today. Something in his tone made Sarah's skin crawl, but she kept her voice professional. We're happy to show you our facilities, Ambassador. The children here represent the future of galactic cooperation. Indeed they do, Thane replied with that same sharp smile Sarah remembered. The future. The tour began in the research laboratories where human and alien scientists worked together on treatments for diseases that affected multiple species. Thane asked detailed questions about everything, taking notes on a device that hummed softly as it recorded. This research must require extensive biological samples, Thane observed as they walked through the genetics lab. We have samples from every known sentient species, the lab director explained proudly. It helps us understand how different physiologies respond to treatments. Fascinating, Thane murmured, his eyes lingering on the storage units. And these samples are all properly cataloged by species? Of course. We have strict protocols for handling genetic material. They moved on to the treatment wards where Sarah felt more comfortable. This was her area of expertise, and she enjoyed explaining the various therapies and technologies they used. In the children's wing, Emma spotted Sarah and waved excitedly. Dr. Chen, did you come back to see me? I'm giving our visitors a tour, Sarah replied. Emma, I'd like you to meet Ambassador Thane. Emma looked up at the tall Zephyrian with the fearless curiosity of childhood. You're really tall. Are all your people that tall? Thane stared down at the little girl for a long moment. Yes, child, we are. That's so cool. I bet you can reach things on really high shelves. We can reach many things that others cannot, Thane said quietly. Something in his voice made Sarah step closer to Emma. Emma, shouldn't you be getting ready for your afternoon treatment? Oh yeah, bye, Ambassador Thane. I hope you like our center. As Emma skipped away, Sarah noticed that Thane watched her go with an expression she couldn't read. It made her deeply uncomfortable. The tour continued for 2 more hours. Thane and his delegation saw everything. The emergency wards, the surgical suites, the recovery areas. They asked questions about patient capacity, security protocols, and emergency procedures. Finally, they gathered in Director Martinez's office for the signing ceremony. The cultural exchange agreement sat on the desk, a symbol of hope for better relations between their species. Before we sign, Thane said, I have a small gift for the children of New Geneva. He gestured to one of his companions, who brought forward a container about the size of a lunchbox. This contained spores from a Zephyrian flower that produces beautiful colors when it blooms. We thought the children might enjoy growing them in their gardens. Director Martinez looked pleased. That's very thoughtful, Ambassador. I'm sure they'll love it. Thane opened the container carefully. Inside, Sarah could see what looked like ordinary plant seeds. These should be planted throughout the colony, especially near areas where children gather. The flowers bloom quickly and spread naturally. As Thane spoke, Sarah noticed a faint sweet smell coming from the container. It was pleasant, almost comforting. Shall we proceed with the signing? Director Martinez asked. Thane nodded and picked up the writing instrument. As he signed his name with elaborate flourishes, he said, This marks the beginning of a new understanding between our peoples. I believe humanity is about to learn something very important about the galaxy. Sarah felt that chill again. Stronger this time. Something about Thane's tone suggested he wasn't talking about cultural exchange. The ceremony concluded with formal photographs and polite conversation. As the Zephyrian delegation prepared to leave, Thane turned to Sarah one final time. Dr. Chen, I hope you'll remember this day. I suspect it will be educational for all involved. I'm sure it will be, Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady. After the Zephyrians left, Director Martinez supervised the planting of their gift flowers throughout the colony. The sweet-smelling spores were scattered in parks, school gardens, and play areas. Within hours, children across New Geneva were helping to plant what they thought would become beautiful flowers. Sarah left the planet that evening, but the memory of Thane's black eyes and cryptic words stayed with her. She filed a routine. The first sign that something was wrong came 18 hours after the Zephyrian delegation left New Geneva. Dr. Sarah Chen was working in her office on Earth when her communication device buzzed with an urgent message. Priority. Alert from New Geneva Medical Center. Unusual illness affecting pediatric patients. Symptoms unknown. Requesting immediate consultation with Earth medical authorities. Sarah frowned and opened a direct communication link to Director Martinez. His face appeared on her screen, but he looked nothing like the confident, happy man she had met just yesterday. His eyes were red with exhaustion and worry. "Sarah, thank God you're available," he said without greeting. "We have a medical crisis here. Children are getting sick and we don't know why." "What kind of symptoms?" Sarah asked, already reaching for her medical bag. "It started 6 hours ago. High fever, difficulty breathing, severe pain. But here's the strange part. It's only affecting human children. The alien kids are completely fine." A cold feeling settled in Sarah's stomach. "Only human children?" "Every human child under 12 on the planet," Martinez said, his voice shaking. 8,000 patients in our center, 4 million more across the colony. They're all showing the same symptoms. Sarah was already moving toward the door. "I'm catching the next transport to New Geneva. In the meantime, isolate the affected children and run full biological scans. Check for toxins, viruses, anything unusual." "We're already doing that," Martinez replied. "Sarah, I think this might be connected to yesterday's visit." The transport journey to New Geneva took 8 hours. During that time, Sarah received constant updates from the colony. The situation was getting worse, much worse. By the time her ship approached New Geneva, every human child on the planet was dying. Sarah had never seen anything like it. The Children's Medical Center had become a nightmare. Thousands of small beds filled every available space, each one occupied by a human child suffering from an illness that attacked their bodies with systematic precision. "We've isolated the cause," Dr. Kim, the center's chief researcher, told Sarah as they walked through the crowded wards. "It's a biological weapon, engineered specifically to target human children under 12. Sarah stopped walking. "A biological weapon? Are you certain?" "Completely certain. The pathogen is designed to recognize specific genetic markers found only in young humans. It's incredibly sophisticated, more advanced than anything we've ever seen." They entered the main analysis lab where dozens of scientists worked frantically around the clock. Screens showed complex genetic diagrams and molecular structures. "The delivery method was those flower spores the Zephyrians brought," Dr. Kim continued. "They weren't plant seeds at all. They were engineered carriers for the weapon." Sarah felt sick. "How long do the children have?" Dr. Kim's expression grew even more grim. "The pathogen is designed to cause maximum suffering before death. Based on our analysis, the children will live for another 48 hours. Maybe less." Sarah looked around the lab at all the brilliant minds working desperately to find a cure. "Any chance of developing a treatment?" "We're trying everything, but the weapon is too sophisticated. Whoever designed this knew exactly how human children's biology works. They've thought of every possible countermeasure." As if to prove his point, alarms began sounding throughout the medical center. Sarah followed Dr. Kim to the main monitoring station, where staff members were frantically checking readouts. "What's happening?" Sarah asked. "The first children are entering the final stage," a nurse replied, tears in her eyes. "Emma Rodriguez, bed 347. She's not going to make it through the night." Sarah's heart stopped. Emma, the little girl with the colorful scarf and the stuffed alien friend. She ran toward the children's wing, pushing through crowded hallways filled with grieving families. She found Emma's room packed with people. The little girl lay in bed, her breathing shallow and labored. Her parents sat on either side, holding her hands. Near the window, Sarah saw Keth, the young Rigelian boy who was Emma's friend. He wasn't sick at all. "Emma," Sarah whispered, kneeling beside the bed. Emma's eyes opened slowly. She tried to smile, but was too weak. "Dr. Chen, did the tall man's flowers bloom yet?" Sarah's throat tightened. Even now, dying from a weapon designed specifically to kill her, Emma was thinking about flowers. "Yes, sweetheart. They bloomed beautifully." "Good," Emma whispered. I hope they make other kids happy." Emma died 20 minutes later. Sarah held one tiny hand while her parents held the other. Keth, who didn't understand why his human friend was sick but he wasn't, cried in a way that broke everyone's heart. Emma was the first, but she wasn't the last. Over the next 48 hours, Sarah watched as every human child on New Geneva died in agony. The alien children could only watch in confusion and grief as their human friends suffered and died. from an illness that didn't affect them at all. The Zephyrians had designed their weapon with perfect cruelty. It caused maximum pain to the victims and maximum guilt to the survivors. The message was clear. This is what happens when a species doesn't know its place. But the most disturbing part came on the third day, when the dying was finished. The Zephyrians broadcast a message across the galaxy, showing recordings they had secretly made during their visit to New Geneva. Ambassador Thane's face appeared on every communication channel in known space. "Citizens of the galaxy," he said with that same cold smile, "today you witness the natural order reasserted. The human species has forgotten the basic laws of strength and submission. This demonstration shows what happens to those who refuse to acknowledge their betters." The broadcast showed images of New Geneva, the beautiful gardens, the happy children, the medical centers that had represented hope for galactic cooperation. Then it showed the aftermath: empty playgrounds, silent hospitals, parents carrying small bodies. "The humans will learn their place," Thane continued, "or they will learn what happens to species that defy the Zephyrian Empire. We have shown mercy by limiting our lesson to a single world. Future lessons will be more comprehensive." The broadcast ended with a final, chilling message. "To the human government, you have 72 hours to submit to Zephyrian authority. Failure to comply will result in similar lessons being taught on every human world. Your children will die and you will watch, until you remember that mercy is a privilege granted by the strong to the weak." Sarah watched this broadcast from her temporary office in the now quiet medical center. Around her, alien medical staff tried to process what they had witnessed. Many were crying. Some looked sick. A few seemed angry on humanity's behalf, but they all waited for the human response. The galaxy had grown used to human forgiveness, human patience, human willingness to absorb punishment and respond with kindness. Everyone expected Earth to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution, to turn the other cheek as they always did. Instead, there was silence. Not just from Earth, but from every human world, every human ship, every human station in the galaxy. Complete communication blackout. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from space. The silence lasted exactly 6 hours. Then came a single message broadcast on all frequencies from Earth. All non-human personnel are ordered to evacuate human space immediately. This evacuation is for your own safety. Any ship or station that does not comply within 24 hours will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. This is not a negotiation. The message was signed by someone no one in the galactic community had ever heard of. Admiral Marcus Chen, Terran Defense Command. Sarah realized with a shock that the message was from her own brother, a man she thought worked in agricultural research. Apparently, he had been working on something quite different. The evacuation began immediately. Human colonies that had welcomed alien visitors for centuries suddenly became very unfriendly places. Alien families, workers, and diplomats found themselves politely but firmly escorted to the nearest spaceport and put on ships heading away from human space. "It's for your safety," human officials kept saying. "Please understand that we cannot guarantee your well-being if you remain." Ambassador Elena Vasquez, who had spent years building relationships with other species, personally oversaw the evacuation of the Galactic Council Station's alien staff. Her usual warm demeanor had been replaced by something cold and professional. "Elena," pleaded Ambassador Crix as he was escorted to a transport ship. "What's happening? What are your people planning?" Elena looked at the reptilian ambassador with eyes that seemed completely different from the woman he had known. "We're planning to solve a problem," she said simply. "It would be better if you weren't here when we do it." Within 24 hours, human space was empty of all non-human life. Ships that tried to approach human borders were met by vessels that appeared from nowhere, politely but firmly turning them away. The galaxy waited. Some species called for military intervention to stop whatever humanity was planning. Others argued that the humans deserved a chance to respond to the Zephyrian attack. The Zephyrians themselves seemed unconcerned. Ambassador Thane gave interviews to various news networks expressing amusement at humanity's theatrical behavior. "They're like children playing at being Day Admiral Marcus Chen stood in the command center of a space station that officially didn't exist. Around him, thousands of the galaxy's brightest human minds worked at stations filled with technology that most people thought was impossible. Project Absolute Zero is ready for implementation. reported Dr. Elizabeth Hawking, the chief science officer. All research teams confirm readiness across all fronts. Marcus nodded slowly. For the past 3 days, while the galaxy waited for humanity's response to the Zephyrian attack, every human colony, research station, and industrial complex had been secretly preparing for this moment. Biological warfare team. Report status, Marcus commanded. Target species mapping complete, came the reply from Dr. James Park. We have full genetic profiles for every Zephyrian in the galaxy. The engineered viruses are ready for deployment. They will target only Zephyrian DNA, with zero risk to other species. Historical erasure team. Report. Database infiltration complete, reported Commander Lisa Zhang. We have administrative access to every major information network in the galaxy. All references to Zephyrian culture, history, and achievements can be removed within 6 hours of your command. Archaeological teams. Standing by on 237 worlds where Zephyrians have left historical evidence. Teams are equipped with molecular disintegration tools and historical analysis scanners. Marcus looked around the command center. Every station represented a different aspect of humanity's response to the murder of their children. This wasn't war, it was something far more complete. Psychological operations.
Memory modification drugs have been synthesized and distributed to field teams, reported Dr. Susan Kim. We can erase specific memories related to Zephyrian contact from any willing participant.
The process is completely safe and reversible. Economic disruption. All financial networks that process Zephyrian transactions have been infiltrated. Their accounts will be deleted simultaneously with the beginning of other operations. Marcus took a deep breath. What they were about to do had never been attempted in galactic history. Complete erasure of an entire species, not just their physical existence, but their memory, their history, their impact on the galaxy. Sir, called out Dr. Hawking, we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Thane. He's demanding to speak with human leadership. Put it through, Marcus ordered. Thane's face appeared on the main screen, still wearing that arrogant smile. Behind him, Marcus could see what looked like a Zephyrian military command center. I was hoping to speak with someone in actual authority, Thane said, looking at Marcus with those black eyes. You humans are still playing games while your deadline approaches. I have full authority to speak for humanity, Marcus replied calmly. Thane laughed. You're a farmer, Admiral Chen. Did you think we wouldn't research your background? Agricultural systems, crop optimization, soil management. Do you really expect me to negotiate with a man who grows vegetables? Marcus smiled slightly. My official research was in agricultural systems, yes, but my real work was somewhat different. Oh? And what was your real work? I studied ecosystem management, Marcus replied. Specifically, how to completely remove unwanted elements from complex biological systems. Thane's smile faltered slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means I learned how to eliminate species that damage the environment around them, Marcus said quietly. How to make sure they never come back. How to make sure no trace of them remains to contaminate the system. Are you threatening me? Thane demanded. No, Marcus replied. I'm explaining what's about to happen to you. The transmission cut off. Around the command center, staff members waited for their orders. Marcus looked at the timer on the wall. 72 hours had passed since the Zephyrian ultimatum. It was time. All teams begin Operation Absolute Zero. Execute all phases simultaneously. Across the galaxy, the most coordinated action in human history began. On Zephyrian Prime, their homeworld, the first bioweapon containers opened in the planet's major cities. The virus they released looked like harmless dust particles floating in the air. But within hours, every Zephyrian on the planet began to feel a strange weakness. The weapon was perfectly designed. It attacked Zephyrian cellular structure at the genetic level, causing their bodies to simply stop functioning. Unlike the horrible weapon they had used on human children, this virus was quick and painless. The Zephyrians simply fell asleep and didn't wake up. But the biological attack was only the beginning. On 237 worlds, human archaeological teams emerged from hiding and began their work. They used molecular scanners to locate every piece of Zephyrian art, every building they had constructed, every artifact they had left behind. Dr. Amanda Foster led one such team on Kepler Station, a trading post where Zephyrians had maintained an embassy for 3 centuries. Located the target structure, she reported over her communicator. Beginning molecular disintegration. The device she carried looked like a simple scanner, but it broke down matter at the atomic level. The Zephyrian embassy building simply dissolved into dust, leaving no trace that it had ever existed. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Ancient Zephyrian monuments that had stood for millennia vanished overnight. Art galleries lost their Zephyrian pieces. Museums found empty display cases where Zephyrian artifacts had been exhibited. Meanwhile, in the information networks that connected galactic civilization, other human teams worked with surgical precision. Commander Zhang and her specialists deleted every reference to Zephyrian culture from historical databases, removing entry for Zephyrian Empire from the Galactic Historical Archive, reported one technician. Cross-referencing and eliminating all related entries. Deleting linguistic records for the Zephyrian language, called another. Updating translation matrices to remove all trace of their communication patterns. Erasing trade records, diplomatic correspondence, and cultural exchange documents. The operation was so thorough that within hours, it was as if the Zephyrians had never existed in any official capacity. Their contributions to science, art, and galactic culture simply vanished from the record. On Rigel Station, Dr. Kim supervised the psychological operations team. They approached aliens who had worked closely with Zephyrians, offering a simple choice. The treatment is completely voluntary, she explained to a Centauri trader who had done business with Zephyrians for decades. We can remove the painful memories of recent events. Many people find it helps them sleep better. What she didn't mention was that the memory modification also removed all recollection of Zephyrian contact. The trader agreed to the treatment, wanting to forget the horrible images of dying human children. When he woke up, he couldn't remember why he had wanted the treatment in the first place. Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. Trauma counselors offered help to anyone affected by recent events. The memory modification was presented as therapy for dealing with the attack on New Geneva. Most people accepted the treatment gratefully. After all, who wanted to remember watching children die? Ambassador Thane, now on a Zephyrian military vessel fleeing toward the galactic rim, tried desperately to contact other species for help. But every communication was intercepted by human signal networks. This is impossible, he told his remaining staff. How did a species of farmers and shopkeepers become capable of this? His science officer, one of the few Zephyrians still alive, looked up from his scanner with terror in his eyes. Sir, I'm detecting the bioweapon in our air supply. It's already aboard the ship. Thane felt the first wave of weakness wash over him. Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them what's happening. Tell them the humans are committing genocide. I'm trying, sir, but all our communication codes have been deleted from galactic networks. According to the system, Zephyrian encryption protocols never existed. As Thane collapsed into his command chair, he realized the full scope of what humanity was doing. They weren't just killing Zephyrians. They were erasing them from history itself. The last Zephyrian died 3 days after the operation began. Commander Vex, a military officer hiding in an asteroid belt, managed to record a final message before the bioweapon reached his hiding place. To whoever finds this, he whispered into his communicator, we were the Zephyrian Empire. We ruled space for 10,000 years. We created art and literature and music. We explored the galaxy when most species were still primitive. We had culture and history and meaning. He paused, his breathing becoming labored. The humans, they've erased us. Not just killed us, but made it so we never existed. Don't let them do this to anyone else. Remember that we were here. Remember that we mattered. The message was automatically transmitted to a beacon in deep space, where it would float for millions of years. But by the time Commander Vex died, there was no one left who would understand what the message meant. Back in the Human Command Center, Admiral Chen received the final reports. All biological targets eliminated, reported Dr. Park. Complete species termination confirmed. Historical erasure complete, added Commander Zhang. All official records of Zephyrian civilization have been removed from galactic databases. Archaeological teams reporting success on all fronts, came another report. 6 months after the New Geneva incident, Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the halls of Galactic Station Prime, exactly as she had thousands of times before. Her diplomatic smile was warm and genuine, her manner professional but friendly. To anyone watching, she seemed like the same person who had represented humanity for over a decade. The morning's council session was routine: trade disputes between the Rigelian Confederation and the Crystal Collective, territorial agreements for the newly discovered Kepler system, standard diplomatic work that kept the galaxy running smoothly. Ambassador Vasquez called Council Leader Zorth as the session ended. "Might I have a word?" Elena gathered her papers and approached the tall, blue-skinned leader. "Of course. How can I help you?" Zorth's forearms gestured in what Elena recognized as a sign of confusion among his people. "I've been reviewing the trade records from the past year, and I've found some unusual gaps. References to agreements and transactions that seem to be missing their original documentation." "What kind of agreements?" Helena asked, maintaining her interested expression. "That's just it. I can't quite recall. There are notes about diplomatic meetings, cultural exchanges, even some trade disputes that reference a species I can't identify. The records just trail off." Elena frowned thoughtfully. "That does sound strange. Have you checked with the archive division? They might have backup files." "I have, but they're equally puzzled. It's as if an entire civilization's diplomatic history has simply vanished from our records." "How curious," Elena replied. "I'd be happy to have our human archivists look into it. We're quite good at data recovery." "Thank you, that would be helpful." Zorth paused, his expression troubled. "Elena, you've been in galactic diplomacy longer than almost anyone. Do you remember any major power that might have disappeared recently?" Elena tilted her head, genuinely appearing to think about the question. "Disappeared? I can't imagine how an entire civilization could simply disappear. Are you feeling all right? You seem stressed." Zorth looked even more confused. Yes, perhaps I am overworked. Thank you for offering to help with the data recovery." As Elena left the council chambers, she reflected on how smoothly the conversation had gone. Zorth's confusion was perfectly natural. His mind was trying to make sense of gaps in his memory, where Zephyrian contacts had been carefully removed. She made her way to the diplomatic quarters, where she had a scheduled meeting with Ambassador Crix. The reptilian diplomat was waiting in her office, pacing nervously. "Elena, thank goodness you're here," Crix said as she entered. "Something's been bothering me for months, and I can't shake the feeling that it's important." Elena sat behind her desk and activated her recording system. "Tell me what's troubling you." "It's about human behavior," Crix began. "For decades, my people have been testing humanity's patience. Small conflicts, resource disputes, that sort of thing. We always expected retaliation that never came." "We prefer diplomatic solutions," Elena replied easily. "Yes, I know that. But about 6 months ago, something changed. All human diplomatic communications became much more careful, precise. As if you were measuring every word." Elena kept her expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean." "And there's something else," Crix continued. "I have memories of warning you about something. Some threat to humanity, but I can't remember what the threat was or who it came from." "Threats against human settlements?" Elena asked. "We've had several of those this year. Pirates mostly. Nothing serious." Crix shook his head. "No, this was different. It was during a council session, and there was another ambassador there, someone who made very specific threats about teaching humanity its place in the galactic order." Elena accessed her files and displayed the session records on her screen. "I have documentation for every council session from the past year." "Which meeting are you referring to?" Crix studied the records carefully. Every session was properly documented with full attendance lists and transcripts. But as he read through them, his confusion grew. I can't find the session I'm remembering," he admitted. "But I know it happened. There was an ambassador there, tall and pale with black eyes. He spoke about consequences for species that didn't know their place." "That doesn't sound like any ambassador I know," Elena said gently. "Are you sure this wasn't a dream or perhaps a scene from an entertainment program?" Crix looked deeply troubled. "I was so certain, but looking at these records I can't find any evidence of what I remember." "Memory can be tricky," Elena said sympathetically. "Stress, overwork, even certain foods can cause false memories. Perhaps you should speak with one of the station's medical staff." After Crix left, still confused and unsettled, Elena made a note in her personal log. The memory modifications were working exactly as designed. People retained fragments of Zephyrian contact, but without any supporting evidence. They began to doubt their own recollections. Her next appointment was with Dr. Sarah Chen, who had returned to Earth months ago but was visiting the station for a medical conference. "Sarah," Elena said warmly as her old friend entered the office. "How are you adjusting to life back on Earth?" Sarah looked tired but seemed to be doing well. "It's been an adjustment. Being back in familiar surroundings helps, but I still have nightmares about New Geneva." Elena's expression grew serious. "That was a terrible tragedy. How are the families coping?" "As well as can be expected. The investigation concluded that it was some kind of natural plague, a virus that jumped from alien livestock to human children." "Random mutation, incredibly unlucky." Elena nodded solemnly. "I read the final report. At least knowing the cause provides some closure." "I suppose," Sarah replied, though she didn't look entirely convinced. "Elena, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you remember anything unusual about the cultural exchange visit right before the outbreak?" "I was there for the ceremony and I keep feeling like I'm forgetting something important." Elena checked her files. "The final cultural exchange was with the Centauri delegation, wasn't it?" "That seemed to go very well," Sarah frowned. "Centauri? No, that's not. I specifically remember someone else. Someone who brought gifts for the children." "The Centauri representative brought those beautiful crystal flowers," Elena replied, showing Sarah the official photos from the event. "The children loved them." Sarah studied the images carefully. They clearly showed the ceremony with Centauri officials, but something felt wrong to her. I remember the person being taller, and the flowers were different somehow. "Memory can be affected by trauma," Elena said gently. "What you experienced on New Geneva was incredibly stressful. It's natural for some details to become confused." "Maybe you're right," Sarah said, but she still looked uncertain. After Sarah left, Elena updated her files. The memory modifications were holding, but some individuals with direct Zephyrian contact were experiencing more resistance than expected. That was within acceptable parameters. Elena's final meeting of the day was with a representative from the Galactic Historical Society. Professor Yan, an elderly scholar from Rigel, had come to discuss humanity's contributions to galactic culture. Ambassador Vasquez, "I'm working on a comprehensive history of galactic civilization, and I've encountered some puzzling gaps in the record." "What kind of gaps?" "Well, for instance, there are references to a major power that apparently existed for thousands of years, but all detailed records of their civilization have vanished. I can find mentions of their influence on art, science, and politics, but no actual examples of their work." Elena appeared thoughtful. "That is strange. Do you have any idea which civilization this might have been?" "That's the problem. I can't determine their identity. The references are vague, almost as if someone deliberately obscured them. Perhaps they were a secretive culture," Elena suggested. "Some species prefer to limit their contact with others." "Perhaps, but the scope of the missing information suggests something much larger. An entire galactic power simply erased from history." Elena leaned forward with interest. "That would be quite a discovery. A lost civilization that chose to isolate itself completely. It would make a fascinating research project." Professor Yan left the meeting energized by the prospect of uncovering a lost civilization. Elena made another note in her files. The academic community was already developing theories to explain the gaps in galactic history, theories that had nothing to do with deliberate erasure. As the day ended, Elena walked to her private quarters and secured the door. Only then did she allow herself to drop the diplomatic mask she wore every day. She opened a hidden panel in her desk and retrieved a small recording device. Inside was the only remaining evidence of what had really happened 6 months ago. A complete record of Zephyrian activities, their attack on New Geneva, and humanity's response. Elena watched the final entry, recorded by Admiral Chen before Operation Absolute Zero concluded. For the record, the Zephyrian Empire was completely eliminated on stardate 2387156. Total population, approximately 2.7 billion individuals across 347 worlds and space installations. Their culture, which spanned over 10,000 years, included significant contributions to quantum physics, biological engineering, and interstellar architecture.